now that you've worked out what you've got and you've assessed its condition, it's now up to you to decide, are you going to feed that animal or are you going to sell that animal? So if you decide to feed that animal, there is a couple of things, there's actually a lot of things that you need to make sure that you have fully worked out before you commit to it. In particular at the moment is making sure that that feed is available and that you can get it in a timely fashion so that you're not left short with animals that need feed. So these are just a couple of images. This is what my place looks like. Got some rain last week, so it's a little green tinge to it, but this is what committing to feeding looks like, putting them in small paddocks, confinement paddocks, and feeding out roughage and feeding out a sort of either a pellet or a grain mix, and knowing that that's available and that you're able to get it. So some of the things that you'll need to understand is you just need to understand how much energy your animal requires and how they're going to get that through the feed that you're giving them. So these figures are a little bit outdated because you've got bigger animals now. So these are based on a 400 kilo cow and about these days it's more like a 500 kilo cow, so just keep that in mind. But I just wanted to highlight to you with the red circles just the difference between feeding a dry cow and feeding a cow with a calf at foot. So she almost needs double the amount of feed that a dry cow needs because she has that calf at foot. So it's making sure that you're upping that feed accordingly as the demands of the calf will start to strain on the cow and they'll start to pull her backwards. And that might be a situation where you might want to consider early weaning the animal. We sort of suggest about that 100 kilos, but Lindell's going to actually run you through some more specifics of early weaning and what that could look like. But basically this is just what the animal needs for maintenance. So this is just sitting her at the level. Yes?
What cost per day?
Great question. So
that's the point.
Yes, absolutely. So basically that equates to if you're feeding I after Tuesday found out that that a lot of you are feeding a grain pellet. And so if you're feeding that at 70% grain pellet, 30% hay, you're looking at about 7.9 kilos per head per day, which is equating to $4.71 per head per day to feed that cow and calf unit. If you were to early wean that calf, you've got a dry cow, she only needs 4.9 kilos of feed per head per day, and that takes it back to $2.94 per head per day cost-wise. And then that calf that you've weaned, if you've decided that you're going to feed those calves at that 100 kilos, it's about $1.48, a kilo 48 feed per day, 88 cents per head per day. So if you work that out, that's almost a saving of nearly 60, 70 cents per head per day because you decided to early wean that calf. So obviously that will change slightly depending on exactly what you're feeding, but that's just a basic idea, and just to show you that there's a big difference between splitting that cow and calf up and feeding that cow and calf, and there's plenty of options to do that. I just want to give you a few take-home messages, just that if you are going to go ahead and feed, there's just a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. So make sure that you keep in mind that quality of the feed is really important. So, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, I can assure you it is. I've seen some woeful things coming in. So just get a feed test. So the LLS is currently offering free basic feed testing. So drop into your local office and grab a feed test bag and get it tested so that you know what you've got and you know that you're providing enough energy and protein to that animal. It's much better to be safe than sorry. The other thing is knowing that you've got enough of it. So that quantity is really important, knowing that it's available, knowing that you're not going to be caught short with 2 weeks, you know, you've suddenly got a 2-week wait on that feed coming in, but you ran out a week ago. You know, that's a 3-week period that you're going to have to try and find something to fill the gap. And remembering that you need to introduce a new feed slowly, you know, you're actually going to cost yourself a lot of money. And the other thing is understanding that you've got the infrastructure to set yourself up to be feeding. So do you have a paddock that you can set up as a confinement paddock? Do you have enough troughs to feed them? Do you have the facilities to be running that many stock in close? It's just about looking at what you've got, and there's a few different steps, particularly for early weaning, that Lindell will run through, but you just have to make sure that you're organised, and that'll make the job a lot easier for you, and you'll be able to get it done a lot quicker. And just remember that always introduce those new feeds slowly. You don't want to be shocking your animal into something and shocking that rumen. So everything in small amounts to begin with, and build that animal up. I just want to lightly mention stock water requirements, because Albert's actually going to do a presentation on water requirements, and there's just a couple of things that I want to reiterate, and it's that quality, quantity and accessibility. So making sure that you understand how much water that your animal is going to need. So as you can see in that table, a lactating cow can need up to 100 litres a day depending on the temperature. And you want that water to be nice and clean so that she has no issues, because if she goes off her water, or your young stock go off their water, they're not going to eat, and then it's just a vicious cycle. So you want to avoid that. And the other thing is accessibility. So if you've got dams, from what I've seen from being in the region this week, there's a lot of low dams, a lot of dams that look boggy. So it's making sure that your animals can safely access that water, and checking your dams that you're not going to end up with stock stuck in the water because they had to get right down in the mud, because there's nothing more unpleasant than having to pull an animal out of the dam. So if you've got the ability to fence off those boggy dams, please do, and set up some off-dam watering troughs, or something that they can get to that's not going to require you getting them out of that mud later. So just make it easy for them, because the less distance they have to travel, the better it will be for them in terms of production.